Welcome, everyone, to the Inside Story podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of building diverse businesses and becoming a successful entrepreneur. I'm your host, Dursun Halimova, a business coach and facilitator on a mission to help build impactful businesses. Today, I'm super excited. I am speaking to a colleague of mine, a fellow coach and trainer, Alexandra Neves. She is the founder of Mindtree Coaching, as well as president of ICF Luxembourg, International Coaching Federation. It's a global institution setting standards for coaching profession. Alexandra is also a stand-up comedian, which I hope we will have chance to discuss briefly in today's conversation. Alexandra, it's great to have you on the Inside Story podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure and honor to have been invited to do this with you.
Great. To start off, I will read several unfinished sentences, and I would love you to finish them for us, please.
Okay.
Here it goes. Being an entrepreneur means
Freedom to pursue your passion.
building an impactful business requires
Passion, vision, and action.
failure.
Failure is success minus time.
Success is a result of
Consistency and iterations and never stopping.
And the last one, being fulfilled in life means
Being happy, finding joy in spreading happiness to others, and fulfilling your passion and your vision.
Great. Thank you so much. There are so many ways we can start today's conversation because based on our initial talk, there are so many interesting things I want us to uncover in today's conversation. But let's maybe start by sharing with our audience who you are. Tell us briefly about the Mindtree Coaching. What problem do you solve and for who?
So I'm a psychologist. I'm Portuguese. I have been in Luxembourg for 17 years now. And I created Mindtree Coaching in 2021. And I do coaching for both companies and individuals and personal development courses, helping people gain more self-confidence, communicate better, know themselves better, more authentic relationships, and advance towards their goals through the coaching part.
Maybe tell us briefly, because this is one of the things I, as a coach, struggled, especially in the early stages of my career. A lot of people misunderstand coaching. They think they don't need they have everything in place. They're fine. And sometimes people look at coaching as if like, oh, you need help, right?
Okay.
Which I would say everyone needs help.
Yes.
In one way or the other. So if you could kind of briefly tell our listeners, what is the core benefit of coaching, especially maybe based on your own experience as a coach?
It helps you go a step further. There's always something in our lives that you would like to do differently or to do more of. Sometimes we procrastinate in applying for a new job. Sometimes we hesitate and are not so confident in applying for a promotion or taking that next step professionally. Sometimes we ourselves be in relationships that are not healthy for us, or we don't allow ourselves to set healthy boundaries in our life. Sometimes we procrastinate on things that we really want to do, but we somehow can't get done. And so coaching helps all those things. It helps you know yourself better, understand where the improvement points are, understand where the blockages are, and develop the tools and the confidence to take that little step further to embrace the life you really want to live.
Indeed. I mean, for me and this is one of the reasons I personally came to coaching and delivering workshops and do other things that I do, is it's such a pity for me to see unfulfilled potential when people say, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. And you could.
Yes.
The hardest thing is to decide, I guess, right?
Yes.
Like I really want X or Y. And then actually you might go through coaching. I think coaching relationship helps you really overcome a lot of the obstacles that have been holding you back. But I think, this is the saddest part when I see people nowadays. I especially work with a lot of entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. And it really saddens me when people say, I've been having this business idea for years. they haven't acted on it, but why? And
Yes.
then, they can always give you a list of reasons why they haven't
Yeah.
acted on it. But it's very sad to see that people
Yeah.
have like a vision for a better future, but for
Mhm.
whatever reason, they are unwilling to take the first steps.
Yeah, and that's what I try to summarize with the slogan of Mind Tree Coaching, which is dream big, act bigger. Because it's you really have to put the actions and the action plan and the behavior, the doing at the service of the dream. Otherwise, it's just unfulfilled potential, like you said. And
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's easier to fulfill your potential than you think. So I really encourage everyone who has this idea but not an action plan to contact a coach and try to explore the those paths that might be there.
I couldn't agree
Mhm.
more. Yeah. Thank you so much, Alexandra, for mentioning this.
Mhm.
And just so our listeners are aware, you
Yes.
have quite impressive academic and professional background. You have an academic background in social and organizational psychology and professional background in training.
Yes.
You also got certified as a coach as well as NLP practitioner, which is
Hmm.
neuro-linguistic programming. Taking a quick break, but we will be back listening to the podcast episode. Help me so I can help you and many other aspiring entrepreneurs who want to build a dream business. If you like this podcast and our mission to promote entrepreneurship as a way to achieve personal fulfillment and do something good for others, help us by spreading the word about the Inside Story podcast. Subscribe, leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and comment, share it with your friends, family, colleagues, or whoever has a business idea and need a little bit of inspiration to pursue their business goals. In the coming weeks, I'll be going through different platforms to see the comments and reviews to pick 3 lucky subscribers who will get free one-on-one coaching session with me where we can, if you want, work on your business idea. Now, back to the podcast. And in 2020, you started delivering online coaching
Hmm.
sessions and also doing online courses. And from what you have also pointed out, for around 3 years, I think, right? You
Yeah.
had your coaching business as a side business alongside your full-time job. And
Yes.
eventually, in April this year,
Yes.
you decided to quit full-time job on your birthday. It was your
Yes.
last day. And yeah, so and you embarked on pursuing your business as a full-time career.
Mhm.
Tell us what has motivated you, what influenced you to make this decision, to make this switch from having your business as a side hustle to having it as a full-time.
Yes. So I myself had this limiting belief that I needed a lot of security in my life. And so I hesitated a lot before going full-time entrepreneur. And eventually, so my strategy to gain that confidence was to have the side business at the same time as I kept my corporate job and making it grow so that it got to a point where I felt that safety. And I pursued that strategy. I put it in practice. The downside was I was actually in the last year spreading myself very, very thin. I was working a lot, carrying a lot of mental load. And actually I was working with a coach myself at the time. And I was like, but I really need this security. And we started, okay, so let's break it down. What exactly do you need? What exactly do you already have? What timeline are we talking about? And I realized actually I was closer than I thought when you put pen to paper. And coaching is a very powerful tool, a very powerful relationship. And so I would work better and be more productive and get more done if I was focused on what actually gave me joy and fulfillment, and realize that my vision of fulfilling the potential of people, helping people fulfill their potential. I also loved my corporate job, but at a given point, you have to follow your heart and your guts, and that's what I did. And the fact that it followed on my birthday was the universe saying, "Yeah,
The
that's the
best birthday gift. Yeah, I think indecision has a lot of costs, and just the
Yeah,
pure joy of making a decision
absolutely.
is the
Yes,
greatest gift in life, I think. Just to be clear, okay, this is what I want. I want to go all in and just focus
yes,
on this one thing that gives me so much passion and joy.
yes,
Well done.
absolutely. Thank
I
you.
think it's a challenging decision. And
Hmm.
so, in your case, maybe this was a good thing that I think a lot of people struggle with kind of
Hmm.
letting go of security. And maybe this is alternative way to build your business. To start
Yeah,
slowly on the side while you have the
yes,
full-time job, if you can, of course, manage to have enough energy to put into these two initiatives at the same time.
yeah. I think if you're really passionate about your project, it actually works as a battery charger. So I was working a lot of hours, but the energy and the joy that I got from my side business fueled me to continue doing it. It's not about the energy you spend, it's also about the energy you gain while doing it.
Indeed. I think that's so
Mhm.
important to find
Yeah,
something that gives you that energy.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Alexandra. And from what we have known already, right? So
Hmm.
you have an incredible academic as well as professional
Hmm.
background in coaching training. But I think when you start a business, there are so many new things you need to
Yes.
learn, right? To position yourself, to sell yourself, do marketing, run the operations of your business. There are a number of new skills and expertise you got to
Hmm.
develop as a business owner. Tell us, how did you go about that? How did you create visibility around
Hmm.
you and your services and attract your first paying customer?
Yes. So because I had been working in training and development for more than 20 years and for 17 years here in Luxembourg, I had already a good network of of people. So I can consider them the first paid customer of this new phase of the corporate business. It came actually through an ex-colleague who used to work in the same company with me, and she moved companies, and she was looking for trainers to give corporate trainings, and she remembered that I used to give trainings intra-company at the time. And she saw on LinkedIn that I had started my own business. And so she contacted me to say, hey, you want to come and present your services? I actually was once also contacted by a prospective client who saw my articles on gender equity, and it just popped up on the Google search when they were searching for a coach in the gender equity space. So it was really nice, and it didn't ended up not working together for that specific project, but it was still interesting.
Yeah, it's very difficult, I think. And this is why it's discouraging for a lot of small business owners to invest so much time in creating content and
Mhm.
writing and sharing their expertise, because you don't get an immediate
Yes.
feedback or immediate clients out of your blog post. So it is encouraging to hear that in your case, it kind of
Mhm.
worked. People did find and reach out to you.
Yeah.
So that's nice to hear. And if you look back in terms of
Mhm.
starting this business as a side hustle and then focusing on full time, what were some of the major challenges you had to overcome?
I think the all administrative part of actually setting up the business, even if my husband also had a business before, and he does a little bit of consulting, helping small companies and entrepreneurs start and formalize their own businesses. So he could help me with all those parts. But I mean, figuring out all that logistics and administrative stuff was the biggest challenge. And yeah, juggling everything at the same time is also a challenge because I also have 3 kids. So I'm busy.
Indeed, I have no idea how you do it. You are a parent of 3 kids, and
Yes,
this is in addition to many other things that you do, also
yes.
comedy, which we will get
Mhm.
into in a minute. Tell us your secret. How do you balance parenthood with running your own business as well as doing things that you love and starting new hobbies like comedy in your case?
Yes.
How do you balance it?
When I was still at university, I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And even though it's a little bit dated, it's from the 70s or 80s, I think, it's still a very powerful, inspiring book on how to manage your time. And one of the key takeaways that I took from the book, and I'm really happy that I read it so early on, is being very intentional with the way you spend your time and accepting that you will not be able to do everything all the time at the same level. So my three kids are very, very close together. So they are now 11, 12, 13. My oldest daughter will be 14 tomorrow.
Happy birthday to her.
Thank you. And for the time that I was juggling three newborn babies, because they're so close together, career took a little bit of a step back, and it's okay. And then when I went back to work after the last parental leave, I focused on studying again. That's when I did the coaching accreditation and the PNL accreditation. I think it was, it's deciding what's the priority right now and also communicating a lot. So in the last 2 years, when I was juggling the side business, I talked with my kids and my husband a lot about what I was doing, why I was doing it. I need to take these holidays off to give training for another company. So I was taking holidays from one job to perform the other job. And because it was the way to create the path that would allow me to do this full time. And now that I do it full time, they get the benefits of me having more flexibility with how I manage my time. To have that benefit today, we had to go through a time where I was less present, and it was communicated and negotiated with them. And then when we were together, we were intentionally together, no distractions. And so it's compartmentalizing and communicating a lot, setting priorities and accepting that 80% of your objective is good enough, and accepting that you'll not be able to be 100% in every single role that you have at the same time. And also always finding time for self-care and for your hobbies. And I think that's really important. Like you said, so that's a good segue. 2 years ago, I started doing stand-up comedy. So I did the first Festrogen festival workshops. So Festrogen is a festival organized by Jess Baldry here in Luxembourg. Well, it's a collective of 5 comedians, but Jess is the one stationed in Luxembourg. And with the purpose of bringing more diversity and more women to comedy, they created a festival with workshops directed to women to teach them how to perform stand-up comedy. And I had never thought of doing it until I saw that it existed. And I followed the workshops, and I have been doing it ever since. And it's great because I find that the skills you develop doing stand-up comedy are very useful for business and life in general, but specifically for business as an entrepreneur, because you have to find a different angle to look at things, to make it funny. And that's also the kind of creativity that you need to make your business work and to differentiate yourself from the other businesses. You have to read the room and create empathy with your audience, and the audience changes every night. You never know if you're performing to a group of 20-year-old expats who just got their first job, or to 40-year-old self-employed coaches who are more relatable maybe to other kinds of jokes that I now do. So that capacity to read the room and create empathy and create rapport and improvising and thinking on the spot, it's also very important in a business setting and as a communicator and a trainer and a coach. And the capacity to look at life through the lenses of how do I turn this into a joke, it's very powerful. Because if you have that capacity, things scare you a lot less.
Indeed, I think you are in such a vulnerable position. Firstly, because you're doing it for the first time. You are amateur. You're just learning. And I think as adults, we are terrible learners. We want to know things right away, and we don't want to necessarily go through a lot of
we don't
painful
accept
parts of
being a
learning.
beginner. Yes.
Exactly. It's hard to be a beginner. And so you have to overcome that. And then you are, as you said, you have no idea who shows up. And comedy can be also in a way a bit subjective, right? Something that might be funny for one might not be. So it is very difficult. You are in a challenging situation being on the stage. And I bet this has really helped you develop resilience and perseverance
Absolutely,
and just
yes.
like to take things easy, I guess. Like,
Yes, and because it's very humbling. Sometimes the same joke gets like a roaring laughter for the audience and clapping, and it's the best joke ever. You do it the following night with another audience, crickets. So, and you have to accept, okay, I am both the creator of a great joke and both at the same time the creator of a joke that didn't work here today. So
yeah.
it really develops, yes, resilience, it's humility and the pursuit of iteration. So keep doing it. Like, why didn't it work? Who was the audience? Who was in front of me? Was it also the venue? Was it, and experimenting? I think iteration and experimenting, it's so important for entrepreneurs, for people in general, of course, but specifically for entrepreneurs, this capacity to test and try and see if it works and it doesn't work, and if I tweak it, how do I make it work? What can I change? And then experiment. Okay, so this still isn't exactly it. So let's try again, experiment again, and try to do it differently. And I think it's a transferable skill from comedy too.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
I think as an entrepreneur, I'll speak for myself. There were times when it was so difficult. Like I would come up with a new project idea or something, and then test it, and then like there's no reaction. People
Uh-huh.
people don't sign up, and then it feels like a failure, and it's very
Yeah.
difficult then kind of to pick yourself up, come back, and say, you know what? Let's see why it didn't work. Maybe I try something
Yeah.
else. And this kind of iteration, trying new things, not being afraid and having the courage and perseverance to come back again and again, being on that stage in your case, right, as a
Yes.
comedian, but also as an entrepreneur, I think it's such an essential skill to develop.
Mhm.
You also shared an advice with entrepreneurs. In our
Yes.
earlier conversation, you suggested one of the best ways for entrepreneurs is to learn to be authentic and not to be
Mhm.
afraid to bring their full selves into the table. And you have a story to illustrate this, the fake Freud story.
Yes.
Do you mind
Yes.
sharing this
Oh,
story?
I love sharing that stuff. I was doing this comedy show, and it's called Fake Freud, because actually the audience writes questions as if it was for a therapist, and then the comedians answer those questions. And because I'm at the same time a comedian and a psychologist, that's my favorite show ever. It also has that part of improvisation. So at the end of the show, this guy comes up to me, and you start talking about how funny the show was. And he was actually the well-being ambassador of a bank here in Luxembourg. And they were looking for speakers to come and present some subjects on well-being. And so he invited me to come and talk about stress management. And I went, and it was really cool. And it came from a comedy show where I was playing at being a psychopath, which is really funny. And I think it's, yes, I am all of those things at the same time. And sometimes things feed into one another. Sometimes I'm doing workshops for the Festrogen festival. I now do the mental health workshops with them. And a client comes for coaching, or this corporate client came through seeing me on do a show, and I still haven't gotten to the point where I can make a corporate training client buy stand-up comedy, but maybe it's in the future. You never know.
You'll get there. Yeah. I think indeed, I agree. It's so important not to be afraid or shy, or for whatever
Mhm.
reason, sometimes people try to separate this is
Yeah.
my professional life, this is personal, this is fun and hobby. And sometimes I think it is worth to bring all of you
Yes.
into these places because you never know how things will evolve. And in your case, you have a kind of a interaction
Mhm.
and a client out of this. And yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. So we are reaching the end,
Mhm.
unfortunately. This has been a fun conversation, but I have two
Mhm.
more questions that I wanted to ask you. One related to the vision,
Yes.
building a vision that you briefly shared. Just to give a bit of context to our
Mhm.
listeners, as you mentioned, you are from Portugal, and
Mhm.
in the early 2000s, you and your husband decided to move abroad. At the time, you didn't have any kids. So,
Yes.
as most couples do, you set some common goals.
Mhm.
But unlike most couples, you actually developed a vision. You called it Vision 2014, and it was a common strategy and business plan for you and your husband to achieve the future that the two of you aspired to. And it included personal relations, plans for having kids, moving to Luxembourg, getting corporate jobs, getting a house, among many other things. Can you tell us briefly about how do you go about building a couple's vision and what goes into it, in case if people want to build one for themselves?
Yes, thank you. So I mentioned before I had read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. My husband read it too at the same time. And we were discussing it's one of the habits is start with the end in mind. And it's about building a vision of who you want to be, what do you want to achieve, what impact do you want to create in the world. And we did that, and we decided like we wanted to work in jobs with a social impact, work towards fulfilling human potential. And for our family life, we wanted to have 4 kids and, the house and the picket fence and a quality of life to actually spend quality time with the kids. And so in Portugal, jobs, we were just leaving university, business school, but people work longer hours for smaller salaries, and there's not the same kind of social support that we have here. The maternity leave is 3 times bigger here in Luxembourg than in Portugal, for example. The parental leave is the same for mother and father. So all those factors made us see that, well, for the vision that we decided, best strategy would be to come to a country like Luxembourg, where it's easier to have better paid jobs, more quality of life, and the quality time to spend with the family. And so we envisioned like that, the vision, and then the operational plan. So coming to Luxembourg, we decided that the best way to come was through internal mobility in international companies. It's the safest, easiest way to be an immigrant nowadays. And so that's what we did. Usually when I tell the story of our vision, I get 2 types of reaction. One is, oh my God, that's amazing. I wish I had done the same when in my early 20s, or that would never work for me because that's very rigid and like you cannot make plans because it never turns out. What I've experienced for real in my life, my true lived experiences, it's not so much about the details of the plan, is about having a vision and knowing where you're going. In the book, there's a beautiful metaphor that I carried with me in life, is that an airplane is off track 90% of the time because it's going from Luxembourg to Paris and it's going like this. It's a straight line. But if you define you're going to Paris, you'll get to Paris, even if there's bumps around the way. If you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. And so I think it's for us it was really important. And then we now defined the vision 2030, and in 2030 we'll probably define, I don't know, let's see.
Amazing. I think this is such a great way for both, especially in your case, you developed it as a couple, right? I
Yes.
think it is maybe more common for individuals to develop a vision for themselves, where they want to go, like in terms of professional career as well. But in your case, it's two people setting a vision for both of you while also taking into account individual professional careers,
Yes.
right? It's amazing. And I agree that I think it's so important to have the vision, clarity in terms of where you want to go, who you want to become. How do you get there is kind of less important, right? But knowing
Yes.
what you want and why, and having that crystal clear, I think will
Yeah.
guide you no matter what kind of difficulties you will experience throughout life. So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing this.
Thank you.
And there's one last question that I want to ask you. This question was left for you by my previous guest. They
Okay.
left this question without knowing who they're leaving it for. The question reads, how do you ensure you are on the right track once you have gained initial momentum, especially when you know your conviction and proof of concept are valid, but you're still facing hurdles or setbacks?
Yeah, I think having that vision very clear of who do you want to be and what impact are you aiming to create? It really helps to prioritize then what your actions might be, what the action plan might be in the pursuit of that vision. But having the vision, the values, the impact very clear, it's like a compass that points you in the right direction. And for me, I think it really helps in times of less confidence, or if I don't hear back from for a client, or if a project is not going at the rhythm or as I would like it to be, sitting with that vision, sitting with that plan helps me keep me grounded and confident to go through the struggles and accept being a beginner at whatever stage of life or business you are, even if you already have proof of concept and things are starting to go well. There's no happily ever after. There's working and learning and iteration forever ever after, and being happy along the way. But I mean, you never got to a point where it's all smooth sailing. There's always waves in the ocean and gusts of wind, and you just have to dance with the unexpected. But
Indeed. And I think that's what makes life so much more interesting, exciting, right? This
absolutely,
uncertainty, as well as these ways that shake your balance a bit, but
yeah,
then you learn new ways to find
yeah.
strength. And yeah,
As long as you
great.
have the vision and you know you have the compass showing where north is and you know where you're going, and then getting there can be a dance.
Indeed. Great. Well,
But
thank you so
that's a
much,
great
Alexandra.
question.
This has been such a wide-ranging and insightful conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the Inside Story podcast to share your journey and also help us a bit understand the importance of vision, the
Mhm.
importance of having a beginner's mind, picking up hobbies that might have nothing to do with your profession, but again, everything to do, right? There's
Yes,
so much stuff
transferable
that we can
skills.
learn. Exactly. Yeah. There's so
Yeah.
much we can learn by doing very unrelated things and
Mhm.
taking time off from our business because it brings so much new perspective and ideas.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for
Thank you. Thank you so
coming on
much
the
for
podcast to
having me. It
share.
was a real pleasure. And thank you for
Thank
the
you,
work you
Alexandra.
do. It's amazing. Thank you so much.